This is the implementation and intersection of class and race. Because now you're interfering with this young man's future just because of a hairstyle. When Black people, especially those of us on the left, say that class and race intersect, here you go. Here's another example. Because you have a white kid with dreadlocks going to that school, and he's not facing disciplinary action, and he's still able to get his education and continue. But God forbid, a young Black man that has really nice locks, by the way, that's done very nicely, tastefully, but yet he gets suspended because they say it violates the code, which it does not. This is the point. That if we try to express ourselves and our own individuality, it is looked down upon. And our livelihoods, career, job prospects are also always threatened. So teen's future threatened over his hair? So if anybody knows anything about being a Black person, or as the chairman was saying, an African, is that our hair has been a controversy since forever. It has been a issue that we have had to endure for a long time, where we are constantly being looked down upon. So a Black student was suspended for his hair at the Barbers High School in Mont Belvieu, Texas. So I actually want to start off with the article that actually talks about what happened in Bellevue, Texas, so you guys are aware of this happening. And to many of us Black people, particularly a lot of Black women, are also very aware of the situation because it happens to them a lot. I think Sabby's in the chat. She can definitely attest to this. But you're going to see how this ties in to class. But it says, this article says, a Black student was suspended for his hairstyle. The school says it wasn't discrimination. I call BS. Out of Mont Belvieu, Texas, says a Black high school student in Texas has served more than 2 weeks of in-school suspensions for wearing twisted dreadlocks to school. When he arrived Monday with the same hairstyle, he was suspended again. That was from his mother. Daryl George, a junior at Barbers High School in Mont Belvieu, was initially suspended the same week his state outlawed racial discrimination based on hairstyles. Now, just to let you guys know, that outlawing based on hairstyles is called the Crown Act. And this has been implemented in many states within the United States, which is basically making it illegal to discriminate based on different ethnic hairstyles. Like for many of us, it may be afros, locks. Some people say dreadlocks, some people say locks. Weaves, sew-ins, things like that are integral to African hair. Well, this also combats against being discriminated against that. So that's what the law that was recently passed. So it was passed in Texas as well. It says school officials said his dreadlocks fell below his eyebrows and earlobes and violated the district's dress code. George is 17 years old. He's been suspended since August 31st at the Houston area school. He was in tears when he was suspended Monday, despite his family's arguments that his hair does not violate the dress code, says his mother, Dorisha George. Quote, he has to sit on a stool for 8 hours in a cubicle. That's very uncomfortable. Every day he come home, says his back hurts because he has to sit in a stool. Says the incident recalls debates over hair discrimination in schools, in the workplace, and is already testing the state's newly enacted Crown Act, which took off September 1st. The law, an acronym for Create a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair, is intended to prohibit race-based hair discrimination and bars employers and schools from penalizing people because of their hair texture or protective hairstyles, including afros, braids, dreadlocks, twists, or Bantu knots. So this is what we as Black people like to call texturism. If you're not aware what texturism is, it is a way of discrimination based on our hair texture. Basically, how it grows out of our hair is being seen as unkept, dirty, even if we wash it and clean it. Like, let's say I wash and clean my hair, and then I just pick it out into a fro. Guess what? That can also be seen as unkept, too urban, or messy, right? That's how it's seen, even though my hair naturally just grows out this way. So that's basically what the discrimination comes from. So we actually had to pass a law prohibiting that type of discrimination, right? So it continues. It says Texas is one of the 24 states that have enacted the version of the Crown Act. A federal version of the Crown Act passed in the House of Representatives last year, but was not successful in the Senate. I wonder why. So it didn't pass in the Senate, but states have passed it. It says for Black people, hairstyles are more than just a fashion statement. Hair has always played an important role across the Black diaspora. This is from Candace Matthews, National Minister of Politics for the new Black Panther Nation. Her group is not affiliated with the new Black Panther organization, widely considered anti-Semitic. By the way, just to let anybody know, anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism are not the same thing. So if anybody speaks out against the state of Israel, that doesn't mean they're anti-Semitic. That means that we're anti-Zionist and that we also stand in unison and in league with Jewish people who also stand against the illegal occupation of Palestine, Gaza, the West Bank. So, anti-Semitic is discriminatory prejudice against Jewish people. Zionism, anti-Zionism is the rejection of oppression of indigenous peoples in Gaza and in Palestine by means of a Jewish state. So they're different. Just to let you guys know. So they may be conflating it, but make no mistake, I'm not going to conflate it here. But continuing on, it says dreadlocks are perceived as a connection to wisdom. This is not a fad, and this is not about gaining attention. Here is our connection to our soul, our heritage, and our connection to God. It says in George's family, all the men have dreadlocks, going back generations. To them, the hairstyle has cultural and religious importance. She says, our hair is where our strength is. That is our roots. He has his ancestors locked into his hair, and he knows that. So this goes into his family tradition. So for him to be discriminated against, well, now you're basically pitting him against his family tradition. And so that's what's going on here. And they're saying Well, it goes below his eyebrows and it goes below his ears. Well, looking at the picture, it doesn't look like that. But even still, let's say hypothetically, it does go below his eyebrows or it does go below his ears, right? Why is that a problem? Why is that a policy? You see, the funny thing is that if a young woman decides to cut her hair short, it's not an issue because she can have it short if she wants, or she can have it long if she wants, right? But if young men grow their hair out, it's seen as bad, unkept, and dirty, especially for black males. Let me share you guys something. Because I've had this gripe for quite a while now. And I think it's worth sharing my gripe with you guys because a lot of times people will say, well, you should just comply with the code. But the code is kind of weird. I quote it, it says, after the suspension, his grades are suffering. He was on track to graduate early, and now he is falling behind and will have to work double time so he can still, that's a quote from the article. I said, if long hair is a quote unquote distraction, then why allow girls to wear it? Basically wearing long hair. This really goes in line with Eurocentric as well as heteronormative standards. If it's not a distraction for a girl to wear long hair, then why is it a distraction for a boy? And they'll say, well, it's about, you'll say it's about hygiene. So if it's about hygiene for boys, then why isn't it about hygiene for girls? Because if girls can keep proper hygiene with long hair, you don't think males can keep proper hygiene with long hair? Have you seen the process of cleaning locks? Locticians will teach you, they'll show you that people with locks, yeah, they have a process where they keep their locks clean. So it's easy. I wash my hair all the time. I can grow it out and still keep it clean. So what is there? It's interesting how they will discriminate in that way. So my question, though, is if we can no longer be discriminated against for the hairstyle in our hair in the workplace, then we shouldn't be discriminated against in schools either. Because a lot of times people will say, well, this is trying to prepare them for the workplace. Well, the new law, you can't be discriminated against it anyway. So what's the point of trying to enforce keeping certain hairstyles for males like that? Doesn't make sense to me, to be honest with you. So let me share this because I want to point out how this is contradictory. And we'll get into one of my main points as well in the story.
Now to a developing story out of Texas. A Houston area high school suspending a black student for the second time this year because of his hairstyle. Now, as Antonia Hilton reports, the family is calling on the district to change its policy.
Daryl George, a high school junior, has been out of class for more than 2 weeks. The Barbers Hill Independent School District in Texas has suspended him twice since the start of the school year over his hairstyle.
His grades are failing. like they're going down drastically. He's not getting a proper education.
All Daryl wants is the chance to join the rest of his classmates.
Go back to class, do what I need to do to get my education.
The district says his hairstyle, called locks, violates their grooming code, which states that male students' hair will not extend at any time below the eyebrows or below the earlobes.
Let me ask you guys, where is it below his eyebrows or his earlobes? Show me in the photo where it's below his eyebrows or his earlobes. I'll wait. You guys know where this is going, don't you? By the way, side note, his locks are fire. I mean, damn, their loctician did a good job. Let's just be real. Daryl George, if you ever see this, your locks look good, bro. But I don't see a violation here. Do you? Do you see a violation here? I don't see. Weird to suspend somebody over something that's actually not there. Unless, well, you guys know. Let's continue.
But Daryl's mom says her son always wears his hair like this, pulled back above his ears and eyebrows. Now, the family is considering legal action.
I want them to really educate themselves on our cultures, on our hairstyles. And then they will see it is covered. It is a part of who we are.
It all happened the same week the Crown Act went into effect in Texas, banning acts of discrimination against certain hairstyles and textures in schools and workplaces. 22 other states have passed similar bills, the legislation gaining momentum after incidents like the 2018 scandal over a black wrestler forced to cut his hair.
Y'all remember this? I remember. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Guess what? All so that he can compete. But here's the funny thing. If you had a women's wrestling team, all the girls would need to do is just pull their hair back. Are they going to cut the women's hair? Oh, no. They would. Look, I'll even say this. Even if it was a young black woman and she had locks, would they be doing the same thing? It doesn't make sense. But when you start to think about it, it's always rooted in anti-blackness. Always.
Compete.
The school says this is really about the length of his hair. It's not about race. Do you see that distinction?
We're dealing with the policing of a hairstyle like locks, braids, and twists that African descendants historically and commonly wear and are associated with our racial and cultural identities. It is a form of racial discrimination.
Today, the district filed a lawsuit seeking court clarification on the Crown Act. They maintain they're not in violation of the new law, which they argue doesn't govern hair length. Meanwhile, Daryl has no plans to change his hair.
I'm staying straight to Barbers Hill. We're not backing down at all. We're going to fight.
Antonia Hilton, NBC News, New York.
So let's share the actual footage. And how they violated the Crown Act. So this is the raw footage that happened when they confronted the school and a spokesperson came out to talk to them about what happened.
Okay, so I have a question.
There's an email too, and it's also accessible online.
Well, I have a question. Are you aware that they have Caucasian students with dreads? This one? And his hair is dreads, he's Caucasian, and he's 99 cents. So are y'all gonna put him in?
Now, this lady representing them took a photo of the student that came into the office that was white with dreadlocks that was hanging past his neck. That's what she's showing him a picture of. A white student with dreadlocks, with hair longer than Daryl's. And he is not suspended. You cannot tell me that this is rooted in anti-blackness. You cannot tell me that. And she's showing him. And he's like, well, I don't know if he doesn't go to school here. He's literally a teenager that's in the office. That's literally going back to class. And you're saying, well, I don't know if he's a student here. I'll have to look into it. Really? Really, dog? Is that what you're going with? And they're literally suspending this young man. This is a long video. This video is like 10 minutes long. I'm going to share it in the chat. But yo, they're literally doing this to this kid. All because he has locks. And the Crown Act was passed in Texas. And they're violating the Crown Act. Now, there's a part that I also want to harp on, because this point is really what I want to make. Let me share it right here. Because this is the point that I think people really need to focus in on. Darisha George, the mother of Daryl George, says, my son is well groomed and his hair is not distracting from anyone's education. This has everything to do with administration being prejudiced towards Black hairstyles, towards Black culture. It says the district defends its dress code, which says its policies are meant to teach grooming and hygiene, instill discipline, prevent disruption, and avoid safety hazards, and teach respect for authority. Let me ask you this. If it's a safety hazard for young men to have long hair, then it's a safety hazard for young women to have long hair. If it's a grooming issue for men to have long hair, young men to have long hair, then it's also a grooming issue for young women to have long hair. Oh, but it's somehow, it's okay, right? But another point, I wanted to point out is that it says here, after the suspension, quote, his grades are suffering, which also means he's not able to play football or participate in any extracurriculars. He was on track to graduate early, and now he's falling behind and will have to work double time just so that he can still graduate. This is the implementation and intersection of class and race. Because now you're interfering with this young man's future just because of a hairstyle. When Black people, especially those of us on the left, say that class and race intersect, here you go. Here's another example. Because you have a white kid with dreadlocks going to that school, and he's not facing disciplinary action, and he's still able to get his education and continue. But God forbid, a young black man that has really nice locks, by the way, that's done very nicely, tastefully, but yet he gets suspended because they say it violates the code, which it does not. This is the point. That if we try to express ourselves and our own individuality, it is looked down upon. And our livelihoods, career, job prospects are also always threatened. How many black women in the chat? I want you guys to tell me how your jobs will look at your hair and discriminate you based on your hair. I got a story right now to tell you. A couple weeks back, I was watching the news. And in the news report, there was a black woman that was an anchor on TV at the news desk. She had braids, plaits to be exact. I was shocked, gobsmacked, I tell you, because she had plaits, braids on live news. Why was I surprised? Why was I shocked? Because her hair wasn't relaxed. Her hair wasn't straightened. Her hair wasn't flat ironed. It was in braids. On national, local television. And a lot of black women were not able to wear that hairstyle a couple years back. They look down on you for that. They look down on you for having an afro. They look down on you if you have bantu knots. Anything resemble just showing our Africanness off, it was looked down upon. When was the last time you saw Oprah with an afro? I bet you if she got that hair wet, she would have it. But she dare not. Because guess what? She couldn't get a job with an afro. Confirmation. Boom. Savvy. She said that's right. Boom. Here you go. Black woman saying this. Some corporate positions won't allow natural hairstyles. By the way, boom. Relaxers are horrible for your health too. Can we talk about the lawsuit for L'Oreal? How a lot of these hair relaxers are now causing cancers in black women? I don't know white women who wear relaxers. I know a shit ton of black women who wear relaxers. My mom being one of them. Thank God she hasn't relaxed her hair in years. But we will literally put our health at risk. Black women have putting their health at risk just so that they can have that job. They will wear wigs, weaves, sew-ins, just so that they won't show off their natural hair, just so that they can have that job. They will take that hot comb and burn their edges just so that they can work behind that desk. And you don't think that class and race intersect? What? Yes, they intersect. And it even goes to how we wear our hair and our jobs. And it's not like, oh, well, you can't fit an afro underneath that cap. Sometimes I honestly think that they will force you to wear caps just so that they can discriminate against you wearing your hair naturally. But that's a whole nother conversation. Oh, well, this cap is part of your uniform. You have to wear it. But I have an afro. Well, sorry, you can't wear your hair naturally. All right? Sabi says when she worked in Baltimore, they made her change it when she got the anchor position in Chicago. Talking about Oprah. And you don't think this still doesn't go on to this day? Oh, my sweet summer child. It definitely still goes on to this day. Colin says school expressions only allow for Lisa Frank and Trapper Keeper. Y'all remember Trapper Keepers? I'm showing my age now, but I remember them. But yeah, so that's the thing that we are constantly being told, is that we cannot be ourselves within the workplace. We have to go by a Eurocentric standard in order to be able to make a living. And that's what's happening to this young man just for wearing his hair in its natural form. So this is what also worker solidarity means. That if you see somebody who looks like me being discriminated against because of our hair, you as a white person, speak out. Speak out and say, yeah, no, that's wrong. Because if I wear my hair long, I don't have anybody who has a problem with it. But if somebody black wears their hair long, especially if they're male, then there's an issue. Speak out. Use your privilege in that way.